Modern history is littered with massacres, but neither have had the same impact, a greater bearing on the fate of a nation than the one that took place in Rabaa and Al-Nada squares in Cairo 10 years ago. It was the end of the Arab Spring, a 2-year revolution that spread like wildfire through the Arab world. But it also plunged Egypt into a 10-year decline, from which it shows no sign of recovering. If the curse of the pharaohs allegedly targeted anyone who disturbed their graves, the curse of Rabaa has doomed a whole nation. Then and now, what took place in Rabaa, and it's hugely well documented, has been buried under a mountain of denial, domestically and also by international indifference. Let us not forget, many people urged the then Defense Minister Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to clear the squares of Islamist protesters. All the left-wing groups, except the Revolutionary Socialists, put their name to a statement saying, "Where is the dispersal?" The Liberals also backed the military coup that had taken place a few months before. When it happened, it was cheered. But if this coalition of Egyptians thought that by getting rid of the Brotherhood, the army would give them back their revolution, they were to be sorely mistaken. Because once in power, Sisi and the army turned on them. Very soon, the same liberals, the same leftists found themselves in prison, found themselves targeted and killed. I think it is now a mistake to call this a counter-revolution. This is not a return to a Mubarak-style dictatorship. It's much worse. Egypt, as every Egyptian knows, is going to the dogs. Egypt is bankrupt. Food inflation is running at 60%. The Egyptian pound has lost 50% of its value in just over a year. National debt is spiraling out of control. Believe me, and only me, Sisi told his nation on many occasions. The problem is they don't anymore. And now what's happening is the middle class are taking 2 jobs to make ends meet, and the poorest of the poor are taking to the boats. And migrants from Egypt dominated the central route across the Mediterranean into Italy. Europe has only got itself to blame. Under the alleged leadership of Catherine Ashton, who was the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy at the time of Rabaa, the EU looked the other way. Ashton was one of the few people to see Morsi in prison in his final days. It's not a secret. She openly admits it in her autobiography. She urged Morsi to accept the coup and stand down. To his lasting credit, he did not, and ultimately paid for his principles with his life. But Ashton, or John Kerry, then US Secretary of State, showed no such principle for upholding democracy in Egypt, and they still don't to this day. Ashton continued to have the warmest of relations with Sisi, whom she described as her philosopher general, and took a family on holiday in Egypt. If Ashton had met Beria or any other monster whose hands are soaked in blood, would she have dared give him the same lovey-dovey treatment? For Sisi, there is no turning back. The only way out is down. But one day, the dead of Rabaa will have their day in court. It could take a long time, but war crimes in Rwanda, Cambodia, and the former Yugoslavia also took a long time. Only then will the dead of Rabaa rise from their graves. Only then will Sisi meet the fate he has bestowed on so many innocent people, a fate he himself richly deserves.